How to forgive yourself and forgive the world. Carl Jung on forgiveness. We have all carried the ghost of a person we once were, a version of ourselves that haunts the quiet corridors of our minds. It appears in moments of silence, replaying a scene where we said a word we wish we could take back, or made a choice in the dark that we now see with the painful clarity of hindsight. And we, in the supposed safety of the present, armed with new wisdom and a different perspective, look back at that ghost with judgment in our eyes. We become our own harshest critic, our own unforgiving judge. We ask, how could you have been so blind? How could you not have known? But this internal prosecution is a profound and tragic misunderstanding of the soul's journey. I have spent a lifetime not in laboratories, but in the sacred, often chaotic inner worlds of men and women. I have listened to the whispers of their deepest regrets, and I have learned this. At every single moment of your life, you are navigating the vast, uncharted ocean of existence with the map you had at that time. That earlier self, the one you now hold in contempt, could not have possibly known what you know now. To expect them to is an act of quiet cruelty. They were moving through life with the consciousness available to them, with the unhealed wounds and subtle illusions that shaped their entire vision of reality. To condemn that person is to scold a child for stumbling while learning to walk. It is to berate the sapling for not yet being the mighty oak. You see, the psyche, the very essence of who you are, does not learn through perfection. It learns through error. It grows stronger not by avoiding breaks, but through the sacred process of rupture and repair. Every single mistake, every regret that you hold so tightly in the chambers of your heart was a necessary, albeit painful, piece of the raw, unrefined material that has forged the person you are today. Without that stumble, you would not have learned the importance of balance. Without that poorly chosen word, you would not have learned the true weight of language. Therefore, the great and transformative work of forgiveness does not begin with a grand, dramatic gesture of absolution. It begins with a quiet, internal shift, a moment of profound, compassionate recognition. It is the whisper you offer to your own soul in the dead of night. You were always doing the best you could with the light you had. Even when your best looked like a mess to the outside world, even when it led to pain and confusion, it was the absolute limit of your understanding at that moment. To truly see this, to feel this in your bones, is to feel the frozen sea of the heart begin to soften, and in that softening, the thick, heavy ice of self-condemnation finally begins to melt. To forgive yourself is not an act of psychological trickery. It is not forgetting. It is not to whitewash the past or pretend it was a dream. It is, in fact, the opposite. It is to finally see the past for what it truly was, a lesson in the great and often clumsy art of becoming a conscious human being. Every choice, every stumble, every failure you lament was not a final verdict on your worth, but a single vital brushstroke in the vast and complex portrait of your soul's evolution. The great trouble is that most of us carry our past not as a lesson learned, but as an ongoing punishment. We gather our mistakes like heavy, jagged stones, place them in a sack and carry them on our backs, growing more stooped, more tired, and more resentful with each passing year. We allow the ghost of who we were to haunt the very house of who we are today, preventing any new life from taking root. But the past is no longer real. It is a phantom. It exists only as a thought, a memory trace, a shadow held captive in the mind. To continue punishing yourself for what is already gone is to live in a state of constant argument with a reality that has already vanished. And here lies the crucial difference between learning from the past and being eternally imprisoned by it. Learning is a living, breathing, dynamic process. It takes the lead of the past and spins it into the gold of wisdom, illuminating the path forward. Self-condemnation, however, is a dead weight. It is a cold, heavy anchor that chains you to a version of yourself that no longer even exists, forcing you to endlessly and masochistically replay a scene that is already over. The great task of a human life is not to achieve an impossible state of perfection, but to achieve a state of wholeness. And wholeness, by its very nature, must include the broken parts. It must honor the scars. It must have room for the mistakes and the darkness. In the language of the soul, we call this repository of our rejected selves the shadow. It is the dark cellar of our psyche, where we have exiled every impulse, every memory, every feeling of which we are ashamed. Our regrets live there. Our failures fester there in the dark. True forgiveness is the courageous act of taking a lamp, descending the stairs, and turning to face this shadow. Not with a sword to slay it, but with an open hand of acceptance. It is to look upon the most rejected, shamed parts of yourself and say, not go away, but I see you. You are a part of me, and you are finally welcome here. This is the alchemy of the soul. When you do this, when you integrate what you have denied, you let the stones fall from your back. You lay down the heavy sack, and in that lightness you realize a profound and liberating truth. You are no longer the one who made the mistake. You are the one who has learned from it, who has grown around it, who has woven its painful lesson into the very fabric of your being. In this sacred recognition, this inner reunion, you take your first true step into the glorious freedom of the present moment. And what you learn to finally offer to yourself, you can then, and only then, begin to truly offer to the world. What is true for the intricate, hidden landscape of your own inner world is also profoundly true for the world outside of you. When another person acts in a way that wounds you, they too are acting from the severe limits of their own internal map. They are navigating from the boundaries of their own consciousness, which may be vast or may be painfully constricted. They are not choosing their actions from a place of infinite possibility and perfect clarity. So they are acting from their own unseen wounds, from a history of pain you may never know, from a set of beliefs and fears that were programmed into them long before they ever met you. If someone speaks to you with the biting acid of anger, it is because a terrible fire of anger is already burning within them, consuming their own peace. If they treat you with the desolate coldness of indifference, it is because a long and bitter winter has taken hold of their own heart. To condemn them without understanding this fundamental truth is to see only the turbulent surface of a deep and mysterious ocean, while remaining completely ignorant of the powerful currents moving in its depths. You see, often the very things that infuriate us most in others are the secret reflections of the things we have not yet accepted in ourselves. This is the subtle and powerful secret of what I call projection. It is an unconscious defense of the ego. We take the parts of our own shadow, our own greed, our own anger, our own fear, that we cannot bear to look at in ourselves, and we cast them onto the convenient screen of another person. The harsh judgment we refuse to face inward, we hurl outward with righteous fury. And so the profound act of forgiving the world begins with the difficult, humbling work of withdrawing these projections. That starts by asking a courageous question in the face of our own anger. What is it in this person that is also, in some hidden way, in me? Which disowned part of myself does their action trigger? To see this is not to excuse harmful behavior. This is not a call for passivity. It is not to say that you must accept cruelty or tolerate abuse. Boundaries are essential for a healthy psyche, but it is to begin to separate the act from the actor. It is to begin to see the suffering, confused human being behind the destructive behavior. It is to see the frightened child hiding behind the angry mask. When you can truly see this, even if you must walk away from that person for your own safety and well-being, you no longer need to carry the secondary self-inflicted poison of hatred in your own heart. And that is the beginning of what it means to truly forgive another. There is a fundamental law in the universe of the soul: hurt people hurt people. Pain, when it is not made conscious, when it is not felt and integrated, has a terrible and tragic way of replicating itself. It is passed down from one person to another, a dark and unseen inheritance moving through families, through communities, through entire generations. A wound that is not healed in a parent will be unconsciously inflicted upon their child. A bitter word spoken to you in a moment of carelessness can be unconsciously repeated by you to someone else an hour later. In this way, we all become unwitting carriers of a psychic contagion, and the world remains locked in a relentless, exhausting cycle of blame, resentment, and retaliation. Forgiveness is the conscious, heroic decision to break this chain. It is the refusal to continue playing the old, painful game. It is the moment you stand in the river of generational pain and decide with all your being that the pain you were handed will stop with you. It will not flow through you to others. And in that powerful moment of decision, you realize that forgiveness was never really about whether the other person deserves it. It was about you. It was about reclaiming your own precious psychic energy from the black hole of resentment. It is the ultimate act of setting yourself free. You become the alchemist who stops the poison from spreading. You become the point at which the darkness is finally met with the transformative power of conscious light. You may believe that by holding on to resentment, you are somehow punishing the person who hurt you, keeping them in a mental prison. But the fire of hatred burns only the vessel that contains it. It is your mind that is filled with the toxic smoke, your own spirit that is slowly and painfully consumed by the endless flames. Forgiveness, then, is not weakness or letting someone get away with it. It is the ultimate act of psychological self-preservation. It is the profound clarity to see that holding on is to chain yourself to the very person and the very memory you wish to be free from. By letting go, you release them from their role in your inner drama, yes, but far more importantly, you finally release yourself. At its deepest, most profound level, forgiveness transcends morality altogether. It becomes a recognition of our shared, flawed, and beautiful human condition. When you look with truly clear eyes, you begin to see that the one who harms you is not truly and fundamentally separate from you. Their blindness is a blindness you have known in other forms. Their confusion is a confusion you have surely felt. Their pain is a part of the same great ocean of suffering that touches all of our shores. To hate them, then, is to hate a lost and wounded part of yourself that you see reflected in them. It is as if one hand were to strike the other in anger, forgetting for a moment that they belong to the same body, animated by the same life force. This is why the wisest souls throughout history have all spoken of compassion and forgiveness, not because it is a lofty, noble ideal to strive for, but because it is the natural, inevitable consequence of deep seeing. When you understand that we are all stumbling through the darkness together, each doing our best to find a little warmth, a little light, how can you maintain the energy required for sustained hatred? Compassion ceases to be an effort. It becomes as natural and as necessary as breathing. You forgive not because a holy book tells you to, but because you finally understand that there is no separate other to truly forgive. There is only life, in its infinite and mysterious forms, learning its own way back to wholeness. When this becomes your living truth, forgiveness is no longer something you do. It is something that happens through you. It is the natural release of a past that no longer exists, and the wholehearted embrace of a present that is always, always full of new possibility. Forgive yourself. Forgive the world. Not because it is the right thing to do, but because it is the only way your own soul can continue to breathe, to grow, and to finally become whole.